Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Learning to Learn with Ideal Schools. Absolutely delighted that you are with us today, and I'm aware that maybe a number of you will be joining us later on with the recording. But for those of you that are joining live, you will have an opportunity towards the end of this webinar to answer, not even to answer, to ask your own questions and have them answered by our panel. So if you would like to, unless something kind of crops up as we're speaking, maybe wait and save your questions for the last sort of 15 minutes or so, that would be wonderful. So my name's Elaine van den Akker. I am responsible for marketing, digital content and partnerships at Ideal Schools. And I'm delighted to have joining us today two of our fantastic tutors, Louise Woodhouse and Ellis Harris-Kijak even. And both Louise and Ellis have a wealth of experience in education, also studying themselves and now as tutors. So our aim today is to give you lots and lots and lots of ideas, things you might never have thought about, things that you might have had an inkling about before but not really known how they work, and just to try to give you lots of ideas and hope that you go away with maybe 3 or 4 that you can implement in your own study experience. We're aware that our audience today is probably made up of people who are not yet studying, who are considering it, people who are self-studying, perhaps not with us, but maybe studying one of the courses that our exam partners provide, and also people who are current students of Ideal Schools. So quite a wide, different range of circumstances to think about there. So what we would like to say to you all is that we hope that this webinar will give you ideas that you can put into practice in your own study journey. I think it's really important, though, that we say from the outset that this is about giving you ownership of that study journey. This is about you thinking about the things that you can implement to make your own journey successful. We want the responsibility for you to do well, to be with you. We're obviously here to support you. We're here to give you as many ideas as we can. But I think all of us agree, and we've all studied at various times, that it's only when you really take ownership of it all yourself that you see things start to fall into place. So we're going to go through quite a lot of different topics today. We're going to start off by talking a bit about learning preferences. And within learning preferences, we're also going to talk about, as an answer to a request from one of our attendees, about tips for people who have ADHD as well. So I'm going to ask Louise to start us off on that part. Is that okay, Louise?
Of course it is, Elaine. Hi everyone, I'm Louise Woodhouse. I'm lead taxation tutor for level 4 for FICB and AAT. I want to start with telling you what I used to do when I was studying, just to give you some tips. And I know that I'm quite a thorough person, so what worked for me, it might not work for everyone, but I think I covered all the learning preferences. So firstly, I would cut off a chunk of the material. As we've all said, little and often is a lot better than doing hours and hours at once. So one small chunk of any material, I would read it and highlight it. I'm highlighting the points that I think are important. Then I would make notes. I would make notes of all the highlighted parts of the material that I've just read, the bits that I perceive are very, very important. Now, for anybody that has written a shopping list and then forgotten it, but remembers that 98 out of 100 things that were on that piece of paper while they're around the supermarket, writing notes is definitely for you. I would also listen to the material when I was out on dog walks. This was mostly because I wasn't in the finance background. I was a teacher, so there was a lot of new words, and I found that just rattling them around my brain while I was out walking the dog, so I've got a clear head, that really, really helped. Then do all the examples, do progress tests, do the assignments, keep using the skills that you have learnt in that portion of material that you've sectioned off for that day. Then I would make templates. So I would make templates for everything. So level 2, I had debits and credits templates. I'd put them on the wall. They'd be on the kitchen cupboards. They'd be on the fridge. It wasn't just that it was there for me to reference during exams or anything like that. It was also, if I was, say, cooking a dinner, I would be testing myself in my head, give myself a little bit of a question, or think about a bookkeeping transaction, the debit and the credit, and then I could check quickly by looking at a wall to see if I was correct. I used to watch HMRC webinars so that I would know that I was progressing. So for instance, when you're doing self-assessment taxation, you could watch an HMRC webinar on property income, and you would actually sit there and go, wow, I know this is great. And it gives you you're then giving you a sense of purpose, because we're not doing this just to learn, we're doing this to get out there and be in practice. I used post-its in the reference material so that I could cut off each chunk that I'd learned, and I used it so that when I was in an exam, I could easily get to and from any section within the material. I always did both mocks. I'd print the screen to PDF and then do them again. And then while I was doing the mocks again, I would make templates for the exams. So for instance, for partnerships, I would make an appropriation account template so that when I was in the exam and feeling a little bit nervous, that I had that template there with notes around it to make sure I didn't forget anything, and it kept me focused, and also with some sort of lovely backup. I took the material everywhere. I took it on school runs. I took it to soft play centres. I took it to the park. Even if you only get 5 minutes, it's still 5 minutes spent looking at the material and relearning, just going over little parts, just you've got to keep doing it. And I also, one of my favourite things was to help others, be it for study buddy groups, ideal schools forums on Facebook. I loved if I could explain it to somebody else, it concreted my learning. And also you can just explain it to friends randomly. They won't be interested, but keep on doing it anyway. So I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but my son has ADHD and autism. And I see a lot of him in me. As I've said to Ellis and Elaine, I'm a bit like, I've got 20 browsers open, there's music coming from somewhere, but I don't really know where. To help me focus, the first thing that I would do is make a list for the day. Now, it's just for that day, and I mean personal things as well as work things or study things. So by making this list, I would then have a focus. Always work in a clear area. Don't work where there's, the breakfast pots are still there or there's a pile of ironing. Take yourself somewhere that's clear, that's going to allow you to focus. If you are looking at that list and something on that list is niggling at you, say you know that you've got to go to the chemist to go and pick up a prescription, and it's niggling at the back of your mind and it's stopping you from focusing, get that job straight out of the way. Be proactive. Know yourself. Know that if you get that job out of the way, then you will be able to focus on the other jobs on the list. Have deadlines. Be it in the material, when you're going to be submitting the assignments, when you want to be able to achieve the exam. Deadlines, or as Ellis even suggested, tell a mate that you're going to pass this exam by this time, and if you don't, you owe them a meal out. But it's a way of focusing yourselves, and people with ADHD work brilliantly with deadlines. It's just the rest of the time that we can procrastinate. So that's it from me on how I learnt.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Louise. And hopefully there are some ideas in there that people can use and can take forward. I think as well, in terms of the learning preferences thing, if people don't know what their learning preferences are, what do you guys advise them to do? How do you figure out what your learning preferences are?
You could do, you know, try making notes, try listening to the material. Everybody learns by doing, and we're going to have to do it. So always do the doing. Make templates, see if it works for you. You know, you've got to know yourself really, but if you know that you are one of those people that will go to a supermarket without a shopping list and they can remember 98% of everything on the shopping list, you know that making notes will help you.
Yeah.
So, but try them all. You have nothing to lose. You've only got everything to gain.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. In the PowerPoint to come, I've got some information about different learning methods that you can try that might work for you. But a lot of what you've said, Louise, resonates with me. And I think I have a couple of extra strategies that I could perhaps add in as well that might help. So one rule that I have whenever I'm studying is the 2-minute rule, which basically means every day, no matter what, you must study for 2 minutes. And that sounds really silly. And you think, well, how much realistically can you get in there? But actually, if you're studying for 2 minutes, you've got to get your books out. By the time you've done 2 minutes, you could probably do 5, and then you could probably do 10. Even if you can't, even if it's just that 2 minutes you've got time for, which everyone has 2 minutes, it means that your books don't get, they're on the desk and then they get moved to the cabinet and then they end up under a stack of papers and then they don't get touched for a month. So it just prevents that kind of mental block of being able to look at the books because they've kind of been sat there for too long. And then I would say as well, it's sort of that taking accountability idea extends to your own weaknesses. And so I know, for one, I'm very good at, in the morning, I'm very productive, but I'm also absolutely like a teenager at getting up in the morning. I'm terrible. And I have told this story before, but I have an app on my phone, which it's my alarm clock app, and I have to scan a cereal box, a little barcode from a cereal box down in the kitchen every morning to get up, to switch the alarm off. And there's no way to get around it. I've given it full access rights to my phone, so I cannot even uninstall the app if I don't want. So I have to get up and go and scan that cereal box. And by the time I'm up, I've actually I've overcome that weakness. And another thing that I'm really bad for is scrolling, like social media. And so I've got an app block on there where if it's not Saturday between 12 and 6, I have to pay £5 to unlock the app to scroll social media. And it's never worth £5 to me. So I've not yet done that. So a couple of things that if you find there's things that are standing in the way of your study, there's usually some kind of creative way around it that actually you can maybe implement.
No, that's fantastic. I'm loving that app. I need to think about that. I'm a doom scroller. I love to scroll. Terrible. Okay, so these are all really good tips. Right, thank you. Sorry to come in with a question so early on, but just occurred to me when you were speaking, Louise, that if people didn't know what their preferences were, you know, what would be the way into finding them out. Ellis, I'm going to hand over to you now, and I know you're going to talk through some sort of techniques for people to consider. And again, as I said at the beginning, no one's suggesting that you implement all of these ideas. As Ellis goes through it, what stands out to you as something that resonates, that's something that would work for you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Elaine. Hopefully you can see the screen okay. So essentially, this wasn't, what kind of webinar would this be if we didn't play a few games? So we're going to break up the middle a little bit with some games that might give you some ideas as to how you can change the way you study. So, but I want to talk to you about a few different things. So firstly, time management, and I think there's 5 or 6 tips here. So time management wise, well, have you ever heard the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. You know, you've got to get through it. Obviously, please don't eat elephants. But anyway, be prepared, as the scouts say. By breaking down big tasks, sometimes the idea of passing an exam can seem insurmountable. It can seem absolutely huge. But actually, breaking it down, making it more manageable into smaller chunks can help with motivation massively. Individually, everything is a little bit less scary, isn't it? There's not quite as much to think about. Finding small gaps in your schedule, like Louise was saying, it doesn't have to be a 6-hour study session. Does your calendar look a little bit like this? So, you know, Saturday and Sunday, which might be the only time you've got, actually, you know, pretty full on, really. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's a weekend loss, really. I can't really study then. And, there's not that much opportunity there. But actually, instead of thinking in the mindset, I've got to put in a 6-hour study block and I've got to cancel my lunch with work friends and stuff, well, let's just try and insert 2 really very specific targeted studying achievements that we can achieve. So on the Saturday, we want to do some debits and credits revision. And on the Sunday, we want to practice 1 bank reconciliation. If we can achieve those very targeted study goals, then it might mean that we're actually able to make more progress than we would have done by thinking, oh, we've got to do a 6-hour study session, cancelling a lot of stuff, then maybe not actually doing it. It might just mean that we can make a lot more progress that way. So there's our first kind of tip on that sense. 1 hour 4 times a week is better than 4 hours once a week. And it means that if you've got to cancel one, you've still got 3 hours of studying instead of cancelling the whole lot. Now, another little tip that we can intertwine with that is thinking about something you do many times a day. So something I do many times a day is opening the fridge. I like to see what I've got in there. Now, being real, it actually probably looks more like that, which is not quite as fun. Now, let's say that I do that. Every time I do it, I'm going to practice 1 double entry transaction. So that's my rule. I'm attaching a small study objective to something I do naturally every day. And it doesn't have to be opening the fridge. It can be every time I boil the kettle, every time I take the dog outside, every time I do any number of things. Now, if, like me, you open the fridge 25 times a day, that's 25 times you've practiced double entry without even knowing. Okay, perhaps 35 times. Now, let's say that's extended over an entire week. That's 175 transactions you've practiced of double entry, or 775 times per month. By breaking it down into those small chunks, how long does it take you to practice 1 double entry transaction when you open the fridge? Probably a matter of a couple of minutes. Well, not even that, 20 seconds. And yet you can see over an entire month, you've practiced 775 times. So there's our first kind of tip in this PowerPoint, which is managing your time and keeping things very achievable by breaking things down into very small chunks. Please do jump in, by the way, Elaine and Louise, if you have anything else you wanted to bring into this, but I'll just carry on rolling through.
Alex, I was just going to say they could take material to the car boot.
This is true. Absolutely. They could actually be listening to it as walking around the stalls.
Yeah, or just, and if you've got material in front of you, people will then say, oh, what are you doing? And you can lead on in. I got several clients from that. So think that. Well.
There you go. It's not just about studying this one. This is about getting business too.
Yeah, fantastic.
Excellent. The next kind of tip we have is staying organized and planning. So I want to play a quick game of this or that, which might give you some ideas about how you can plan your study in different ways to make it a little bit more enjoyable. So I don't know if you've ever seen this game on Facebook or on any of your social medias, but what I want you to do is pick A, B, or C, depending on what you'd like best. So would you like a picnic in the park? Would you like a pizza at a restaurant or an afternoon tea? So I'll just give you a second and then we're going to move on to the next. So which one of those stands out to you more? Okay, so would you like a hike outdoors? Would you like a visit to Paris? Or would you like a nice stately home visit? So again, A, B, or C. Keep in mind which letter you're generally choosing the most. Would you like to go camping out in the wilderness as a holiday? Would you like a city break? Or again, it looks a bit like a stately home, kind of really fancy place to stay. Okay, so if you picked mostly A's, then you seem to like the outdoors. So why not take a blanket outside and read a few chapters outside? It can, getting outside, having the sun on you, it can make a huge difference to how motivated you feel to study. Going for a walk to break up the study, having breaks, we're going to talk a tiny bit about that in a short while, can also help with motivation and keeping going, especially when you get a bit of a mental block and you kind of, I just can't figure this one out. If you said B, you probably love to explore, I'm guessing. So watching videos from others to get perspectives might help. YouTube is a great resource, especially AAT, Will Boardman, if you've ever heard of him on YouTube. He does loads of videos. But there's so many creators on YouTube that for both, for all the standards, that might actually give you different perspectives from what you see. And of course, Ideal Schools now has a range of video content by our lovely tutors. So you can also take advantage of that too. Reaching out for your friends in your group as well and meeting up for a study day is going to help too. So if you at Ideal Schools, we have a welcome like a welcome evening every month, is it, Elaine?
Every month, yeah. So we alternate between afternoons and evenings usually, Ellis. But yeah, every month there's a welcome meeting for people that have enrolled in the previous sort of 2 or 3 months. And yeah, that creates a little peer support group for you. So hopefully that's something that people will really actively want to engage with. And yeah, reaching out to friends in your group and meeting up for a study day, or even just having a chat on Zoom or a WhatsApp chat. We'll come back to that later on, but I think all of that makes you feel a bit less isolated. So if you're an explorer and a getting out and about and understanding person, that's the way to go.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And if you said mostly C's, you like your luxury treats. So why not get a pack of your favorite tea or drink that you really like drinking whilst you're studying and only have it when you're studying to give you that bit of motivation? Or you could arrange an afternoon tea for friends when you pass as a motivation. So that's your goal that you're working towards, instead of getting the exam pass, which might not be the motivation that's enough to get you to study. So the idea overall there is keeping everything organized, trying to find ways to make it work for you. Okay, active learning, there's loads of different strategies that you can use to learn. And so I've got another mini game for you, which is put a finger down. I don't know if you've ever seen this one. You start with 10 fingers up in the air, and then what I want you to do, every time you've used one of these study methods, put a finger down. And hopefully by the end, if you've used lots of different study methods, you'll result in very few fingers left in the air. But
Louise, are we playing along?
I think you should play along. Yeah, are you up for it? Okay. So raise 10 fingers, and every time I say a study method you've used before, put a finger down. So firstly, summarizing notes. I think, Louise, you definitely say that since you were talking about that earlier. What about teaching others? So teaching others is obviously a great way to pass on knowledge, but also reaffirm the knowledge in your own mind. And their questions might actually be useful for you to either answer or find out the answers. Mind maps.
Love a mind map.
Oh, you're not a fan, Louise, of a
I'm
mind
not.
map?
I know the mind map.
Ah, love a mind map. Study buddies. So that's where you can use those contacts from the welcome evenings and afternoons or the Facebook group. Contributing knowledge on social media. So there's obviously that online study group where actually by contributing information that you know, you're helping reaffirm that knowledge in yourself as well. Creating cue cards. Are we a fan of cue cards?
Yeah.
We've got textbook activities. So the stuff that we get in our end of chapter activities, really helpful usually. Online quizzes. So whether that's on the FICB mocks or whether it's the AAT green light tests, there's loads of different methods that we can reaffirm our knowledge by taking part in these online quizzes. Speaking to experts. So if you have a question, getting in touch with a tutor. And practice papers. I think that might be it. So how did we do? We have one letter. So here we go. If you had 8 to 10 figures down, wow, which you both have, you've been trying loads of different methods. So there might be a few methods in there. If you've got 4 to 7 fingers down or 1 to 3 fingers down, perhaps there's a couple of extra methods in there that you could pick out and maybe use and try. And they might not all work for you, but just like Louise isn't a fan of the spider diagrams, it might be that you decide actually this really isn't for me, but it might work as well.
I'll give it a go.
Okay, but this is all we can ask.
I think it's more for concepts, isn't it? The mind maps are good for concepts, aren't they?
Absolutely. The broad overview. You're not going to be writing like tax rules in depth on a mind map, I wouldn't have thought. But yeah, overall mind mapping is great. Now, don't forget, anytime you can seek help, and it's important to try and seek help whenever you get stuck instead of letting that feeling of being stuck. And don't feel like ashamed or feel like there is a silly question. The only silly question there is the one that's not asked, as they say. So please do ask, ask away, and we'll be more than happy to help. You've obviously got the phone support. We can speak to you, by email, on the Facebook group. There's a messenger group
there's
as well.
Messaging service on the portal.
Loads of methods that you can use to get in touch. So please do. Nothing destroys the vibe like being stuck, if there is such a study vibe. So please do, even if you're not with us right now, your provider will most likely have some kind of support. So please do use it. Okay. I think this might be the final one, and of course, we've got to play a little game. Do you remember play your cards right? Well, we've got to play a little game of that. So Do you two want to join in on this one as well? With
Go on, will we go
uh,
higher and lower?
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So let's start with 6 because I think that's quite a fair middle number. Now,
Mhm.
what do you reckon? The number of hours sleep recommended by the NHS per night, do you reckon higher or lower than 6?
Yeah, higher. I think higher.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the number of hours recommended is 7 to 9 hours, so I've put 8 as the middle ground there. So yeah, of course, if you get more sleep, that's where your brain actually starts to make the neural connections and actually remember what you've taken in. So if you study but then don't get any sleep because you've done it all night, you're less likely to remember that much. Whereas actually, if you get the sleep, your brain will be forming those connections whilst you sleep and helping reaffirm that knowledge in your mind. Okay, what about the number of portions of fruit and veg recommended per day? Is it higher or lower than 8? What do we reckon?
Lower.
Where?
Yeah, absolutely. So 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. So healthy eating will help. It gives us our nutrients and our vitamins, and it will help us to ensure that we can actually, feel healthy and happy to go ahead and study. I need to work on that one. I think I'm terrible. I'm like a chicken nuggets and chips kind of guy. Okay. Um, how many cups of fluid is recommended per day? So water.
Must be higher.
Do you reckon
Must be
Higher,
higher
higher.
or
yeah.
lower? Yeah, absolutely. So the Eat Well guide recommends that people should aim to drink 6 to 8 cups or glasses of fluid a day. So again, being hydrated will help you to retain knowledge and to feel good whilst you're studying. So absolutely, that one we've put 7. And finally, how many hours of moderate intensity activity should we aim to do per week? So hours wise, do we think it's higher or lower than 7?
Mhm. Slightly lower?
I was going to say 7,
Okay, so an hour a day, that makes sense.
an hour a day.
The NHS actually says adults should aim to get at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity a week or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity a
Two and a
week.
half hours.
So yeah, so 2.5 is what we're going for on that one, which isn't that much to be
No,
fair.
it's not.
Yeah, but I think the idea of getting outside and doing some activity and it really does help with breaking up the study and not making it feel like that's everything. I know that whenever I go out and do some physical activity, it actually makes me feel a lot better. So yeah,
Gets
there you go.
oxygen to your brain, Ellis.
There you go. You've explained that much better than I did. So yeah, absolutely. Great job. Okay. So self-care is really important for academic success. So try and get enough sleep, keep yourself hydrated, maintaining that healthy diet to help your brain function, and exercise to boost mood, sleep quality, and energy levels. I should have just read it from the PowerPoint, I think. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, and the final thing I'd just say, and then I promise I will
No, you're fine.
give
These
up
are
the
all good.
PowerPoint, is staying positive. So it's really easy to become our own biggest critic and get into a rut of thinking I'm not good enough.
I
So
think this
try and
one is actually not even an add-on. I think this is almost one of the most important, to be honest with you.
Okay, excellent. So could it become self-fulfilling if we're not careful? If we keep thinking we're not good enough to do this, then will that actually become reality? So try and develop a growth mindset. And what we mean by that is trying to reframe what we're thinking. So instead of thinking I'm not good at this, thinking what am I missing? What's going to help me become good at this? Instead of thinking I give up, could we perhaps think, is there another strategy? Is there another way to go about this? Am I approaching it wrong? Instead of thinking perhaps it's good enough, if we're perhaps on 70% and we're thinking, or 85% for the ICB, and we're thinking, might just get through. Could we perhaps think, is this the best that I can achieve, or can I stretch myself a little bit further? Instead of thinking, I'll never be smart, I'm never going to be able to achieve this. Try thinking, I will eventually learn how to do that. I will get there, absolutely. And if plan A didn't work, there is always plan B, as cringy as it sounds. If your friend can do it, if it seems to come so easy to someone else, I think I will learn from them. There's opportunity there as well, and I'm sure they'll be happy to pass on the knowledge. Remember that people might say, oh, it's easy. It's easy. It's not easy. It comes with ease to them. That's the difference. Just because it's come with ease to them doesn't mean it should come with ease to you, and it doesn't reflect anything about the difficulty. Accounting work generally is difficult, and it's not I would say no concept you could describe as easy. Otherwise, we wouldn't need training to do it. So it really is down to whether it comes to you with ease or not. And lots of things will depend, not just, you know, your IQ. Lots of things will actually affect whether it comes with ease to you.
And you can
So
have one concept that does come with ease to you, and then another that doesn't, and then someone else could be completely different. It's very rare that people have real issues with every single element of courses, or have no issues with every single element. Everybody's a bit of a mixed patchwork, aren't they?
absolutely, you're
Yeah.
not wrong. Yeah, and concepts that someone else finds very difficult, you might go, oh well, that was no problem at all. You know, even if you'd been struggling with the rest. So yeah, try not to think of it like you're struggling with the easy stuff, because it's certainly not the case.
Yeah.
So in summary, these were there's a couple more things there, but there's a few ideas that you might be able to take away as different ways that you can try and improve your study methods. So we're not finished. I'm gonna hand back over to Elaine now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ellis. I think there's loads of good stuff in there, and I know that the growth mindset stuff is huge in schools now. I worked in secondary schools up until 2020, and perhaps some of the people watching the podcast, and perhaps Louise and myself, and maybe yourself also, Ellis, although you're slightly younger than us, didn't experience a lot of growth mindset thinking when we were in school. You know, it was very much, here's your mark out of such, and that's good or that's bad. I think the whole growth mindset thing has changed the way people teach in schools, and also the way young people learn. So there's absolutely no reason to think that that's not something that can be applied to adults as well. It's really important to think of ourselves as people that can learn how to do things, and that when you hit a barrier or you hit a bump in the road, that it's a case of getting past it. It's not a case of giving up. There's always a potential for you to learn how to do something. It may just take a bit longer than other things. I mean, in school, we used to talk about there is no such word as fail. It represents your first attempt in learning. And that was always the way we would talk about it with young people. So it's something I think that we should be thinking about applying to ourselves as grown-ups as well. I would like to talk to you now a little bit about kind of how to make habits stick. So this is something that I've been finding quite interesting. Certainly something that I myself have been looking into, not necessarily to do with education, more to do with health and getting more exercise and getting out walking. But I think a lot of the stuff that I've been researching is absolutely relevant to what we're talking about today. Some of the research suggests that when you're trying to make habits stick, that your thinking brain is not your best friend, that actually it's your subconscious that you want to harness, and so that you can use the strength of it to start to get patterns in place that you can stick to, and that your goals therefore will not be just goals, not things that you hope to do, but they will become habits and they will become a routine, and therefore they're far more likely to go ahead and stick. So I've been researching a bit about this, stuff that I've also used with young people in school as well. But you have to stop thinking about your kind of study goals, as I said, as goals. It's important to start to think about them as things that are going to happen, things that you are going to do. And the way that you do that is to make them almost automatic. And the way that it takes quite a long time for you to get a routine automized. I think the research suggests something between, let me just find it in my notes. I think it's up to 18, wouldn't that be lovely? To 254 days it takes for habits to become ingrained. So you have to do them over and over and over again before they're actually embedded into what you do every day. There are lots of things like what Ellis suggested about the fridge, which are called habit stacking, where you add something that you want to do, that you want to add to your routine, into something that you do every day, that you do as a matter of course. That's a really good strategy. It's also about making your study an appointment. So it's not something that you might do if you feel like it. It's something that's there, like the hairdresser or the dentist. You put it on the calendar and that's what you do. But you don't just do that randomly. You think about your lifestyle. You think about where the demands are on your time as the week goes on. Do your children have clubs or activities on certain evenings? Do you have work? Do you have responsibilities, things that you yourself are engaged in and involved in that you can't get out of in the evenings? So it's looking at, what does my week look like at the moment? And where are the little bits that I can slot my study into, and put them on your calendar. Put them on your calendar like Ellis did. with his weekend and stick to them that way. That's one of the kind of clearest ways that people see change and progress. And it's also not about perfection. If you've got it on your calendar and it doesn't happen that day, why didn't it happen? You don't just throw it all in the bin and say, I can't do this, and give up. You have to say, right, why didn't that work out? How can I change my mindset? How can I change the circumstances around it, make it more convenient so that next time I do stick to it? So it's not about giving up when you don't hit perfection. It's about consistent progress over time, okay? There's also something called the habit loop, which is something we can harness and use to our own advantage. So the kind of habit loop, if you think of waking up in the morning and having your coffee. So for me, coffee is very important. And Ellis was saying about having to scan the QR code on his cereal box or whatever. My coffee is absolutely vital to me actually functioning in the morning. So if you think of the cue, so the first thing in a habit loop is the cue. The cue is the trigger, which is my alarm clock going off in the morning. The craving is the next thing, and the craving is the desire for a specific outcome. I need to wake up and get some energy. Then we have the response. That's the action I need to take to satisfy the craving, and that's for me to make my cup of coffee. And then the reward, the positive result that reinforces the habit, and that's my boost of energy and feeling like a human that I might actually want to speak to people in the next kind of hour or so. So you can use this loop to your advantage. You can think about what your cue, your craving, your response and reward are going to be in terms of your study. So think about the reward, and maybe think about how your response is at the moment. Is your response, I can't be bothered? How can you make your response different? And what's your reward going to be? As Ellis said, passing an exam might not necessarily be enough of a motivation for you. You might need to think of having a reward that's a bit outside the box, that's a bit different. And it's about using accountability and rewards and being regular and repeating it over and over and over again and being consistent. Gradually, your brain will rewire and you will start to kind of automate these things and make them more stickable, okay? Also, the other thing I would like to say about this before we move on is visualize your success. Think of yourself as capable of learning what you're trying to learn. That whole mindset of I'm rubbish at this, I can't do it, isn't helping you. Okay, so trying to think about yourself as a capable person who is going to learn how to do this, and you might need to access some support. We've talked about a lot of the supports that are available, but you are going to definitely get there. Look at our student spotlight features if you're looking for motivation. Lots and lots and lots of people have gone through these training courses and have gone on to be successful, and there's absolutely no reason why you cannot be one of our success stories, okay? The other thing, I was interested in you talking a bit about how you can harness what you like for kind of rewards, Ellis, how you would build them in. There's a lot of research on dopamine and how you can make dopamine helpful, the brain chemical dopamine, to set routines and to get yourself into doing things. So I don't want to go into a lot of detail here because I'm aware time's moving on. But if you can either build some dopamine into the experience of studying, or lower your dopamine in the rest of your life, then the kind of dopamine crash that you currently experience when studying will be less of a harsh thing. Okay, so if you're somebody that eats junk food, scrolls on your phone, lies on the sofa, bed rots, does all that, then when you go to study, the dopamine crash is going to be severe because it's very, very different to how you live the rest of your life. Whereas if you can get out a bit more, get some exercise, eat a bit better, then the kind of difference between the dopamine levels is not going to be quite so extreme. Or you do what Ellis suggested, and in your rewards you build in kind of things that are going to make your dopamine go up. What are the things to do with study that can make it better for me, that can make it be something more attractive for me? So there's loads of interesting research out there. There's loads of stuff we can go into on this. We will provide a study guide on this webinar at a later date, and everybody that's signed up will get it. And I'll kind of dig into the dopamine thing a little bit more in that.
Elaine, could I just butt in for a second? I found actually studying and getting my assignments back marked, I kind of became addicted a bit to that. I found that became a dopamine shot.
That's amazing. So that's great. That's exactly what we want. That's the ideal situation then, isn't it? When actually that's motivating you. You're doing it for the intrinsic motivation of doing well and continuing to progress. And I'm sure loads of people are the same. It's just, I think, for people that are struggling to study, I think sometimes it feels insurmountable. It feels like a brick wall, and it feels like, you know, how do I even start? And I think trying to think of ways to trick your brain into just getting started. And then I think once you do, and you start to have success, like you say, you're going to actually, that's going to be in itself a reward. No, I think you're spot on. We're going to finish off with questions in about 5 minutes. Before we get to that, I promised that we would discuss some of the common hurdles to distance learning, which we will have a look at now. We have got questions coming in. I've been taking a note of them as we're going along, and we'll come to them in just a second. So, guys, if you are up for it, I will get you to just come in with any answers on these as we go through them. Let me just share my screen, and we will have a look at the common hurdles. So, our first kind of common hurdle, all right, is staying motivated. We've talked a bit about that already. Ellis, you were talking a bit about breaking study up into small chunks, setting micro goals, celebrating every win. Is there anything else either of you would add to staying motivated that you think we haven't covered already?
Study buddies.
Okay, tell us a bit about that.
So when I started, I joined the Ideal Schools Student Support Forum. Then you get used to who's studying at the same time as you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who's studying the same levels, I should say.
Yeah.
So then I had 4 study buddies, and not only was it great for keeping motivated because you didn't want them to become too far in front of you, so it spurred you on.
Yeah.
It was also great that, as Ellis said, something that you find easy, somebody else might find hard, and you can explain things to each other and give a different insight on it, a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's really helpful.
It's like when you don't want to go to the gym and you find a gym buddy and then you go together and you've got that level of accountability to each other as well. So if you can find a study buddy and you're like, we're both going to sit the exam at this day or at this month, at least you've got that level of accountability that might help you stay motivated as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So accountability, bringing, having your study buddies, sort of getting other people involved in your learning journey. And also I think that whole thing of, yes, celebrating every win, every single time I think we've got a tendency to go, I can't do it. Oh, I finally got there, on to the next thing. Do actually give yourself a bit of a chance to give yourself a pat in the back, because it's only when you think of, oh, I actually managed to do that, I got there, that gives you confidence, and you deserve that. You know, you've put the time in. Give yourself some kind of motivation. Back in the day, I would have probably had a nice bar of chocolate or gone out for a nice meal. I'm trying to be a bit healthier now, so maybe I would, as Ellis was saying, have my favourite tea or coffee drink or something like that, and try not to be quite so focused on food as a reward, which is probably not the healthiest thing in the world. But yeah, do something to say, yeah, I did it, and celebrate that win. The next one we're going to look at is this feeling of isolation that is common in distance learning if you let it be. So, as you know, probably, if you don't, I'll tell you about it now. We have 2 private Facebook groups. We have student support and then we have students in practice. And they are there for you to share motivational tips, to kind of egg each other on, to sort of, when you're having a bad day, come on and say, oh, I'm struggling to get motivated. What are your tips? To think of other ideas for how you can go about study. All of those different things, those Facebook groups are there. Also, pick up the phone to your tutor. We do not automatically mark exams. We don't have any automated marking of our assignments, sorry. Every single assignment that comes in is marked by a person. So you are getting feedback to your piece of work from a real human being. So hopefully that relationship that you start to develop with your tutor will also help. Anything else on feeling isolated, folks?
Again, the study buddies and definitely the forums. But study buddies, somebody that you can, if you feel isolated because you don't understand something, you can say, oh, I'm finding this really hard to understand. You know, has anybody got any tips?
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. Let's continue then. Our next one is time management. So we've talked about this a lot today. Build study into existing habits, like study bites with your morning coffee, you know, doing an exercise every time you open the fridge, whatever it happens to be. I know in the past we've talked about using cue cards, which Ideal Schools have available on our portal every time you boil the kettle. Do you want to talk a minute about cue cards, Ellis?
Yeah, cue cards are an excellent way to keep your knowledge. So they'll only have a little snippet of information, but the idea is to memorize them. We have quite a range of cue cards built for each unit on the Ideal Schools portal, but then there's other options as well. So you could obviously make your own, but then there's a great app which you might have used before called Quizlet, which is a fantastic resource where other students and other tutors and teachers have put information, they've built their own cue card decks and they're publicly accessible so you can access them. So if you go to Quizlet and search the unit you're doing, there will no doubt, I have no doubt at all, there will be 5-10 decks of different cue cards that have been written by other students like you that you can use. And actually you can then, there's like a games feature where you can play games with the cue cards and things like that and play matching and stuff. So another great app that might help.
No, that's great, thank you. Confidence wobbles. And I've said this already, progress over perfection. Our tutors give personalised feedback to build you up, not knock you down. What would you say about confidence wobbles, folks? How did you address them when you were studying?
I would be positive, so I would be, as you said, I'd be the person that would think, it's not that I'm not getting this, it's about how I'm going to get this. So it's all about your positive outlook on it. And my favourite thing was going in, having a bath and having some chocolate in the bath and thinking, I'm going to get this by the time that I've finished this bath. And I would just, if you are positive about it and you say, okay, I must be looking at this the wrong way or something, I'm going to find a different way of looking at this. And I think that positivity is huge.
I think I would agree with that. And also perfection isn't the end of everything type thing. I quite often hear people beat themselves up for getting like 95%. Like, oh, I wish I'd have got 100. Or you know, if you get 60% and fail an exam, people beat themselves up. Oh, I can't believe it. But actually, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? Like nobody in my AAT entire journey and entire life, I've never once been asked for my percentage score in AAT. And to be honest, as long as it was above 70%, I didn't mind. But even if you don't get every exam first time, it doesn't actually, you know, I know there's a cost to it and I know that it's annoying, but equally in the grand scheme of your entire life, it doesn't really have any bearing. So it's just remembering that actually sometimes I think we build these things up in our head and think, oh, it's the most terrible thing in the world if we fail, but actually it's really not. There's nothing major is going to happen as a result.
Oh,
and I'm with Elaine. Nobody's ever asked me any of my exam grades. It's just not how. As long as you've got the qualification, that's all you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know certainly I've not studied bookkeeping or accounting. I have studied lots of things over the years. One of the things I did study was languages and marketing at university. And my German was a bit of a labour of love because I started it as a beginner in first year at university, never having spoken any German at all, and then ended up doing it as part of my degree. And I used to, yeah, really struggle with it, and I had to spend a lot of time on it, and used to sit and write things out over and over and over again. So I was definitely a visual learner that liked to see things over and over again. And I do remember when I finally got my degree, my marketing marks and my French marks were really pretty good, and my German mark was just enough to scrape through what I needed to get. And do you know what? I ended up setting exams for the Scottish Board of the Scottish Qualifications Authority for German. Nobody ever asked me what percentage I got at university. So it just shows you it doesn't really, in the big grand scheme of things, matter. It's once you've got that exam pass, that's really what counts. So don't be too hard on yourself. Keep positive. Talking of exams, we're on to our next and final hurdle: exam preparation stress. So we do at Ideal Schools do our best to walk you through practice assignments and mock exams until you feel confident. Did you guys used to get stressed at exams?
Yeah, I still take them every year, Elaine, just to make sure that the materials are brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm still nervous when I go for the mocks. I'm not so bad, but as soon as I press start on that real exam, I'm still nervous. And
Yeah.
that's why I think templates help me really calm down, because I think, you've got it in front of you, Louise. You can do this.
Yeah.
You've written out all the notes around it. You can, and visually it calms me down.
Yeah. Having that structure in place so you know how you're going to present your answer. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. So would you suggest people make up their own templates?
Oh, for definite. If I gave my templates to the people, it doesn't give you the thought process of, and I will often say to students, make a template, write this at the side, make sure that, and that will make sure that you never forget it again.
Yeah.
Have them all over the wall. I had them everywhere.
Yeah.
I think with regards to exam prep, when I started studying, I used to feel quite nervous, but actually I think I just go back to the previous point as to, if you fail, it doesn't actually matter. Like, it really, nothing will change in the world. You will wake up tomorrow and just try again, and it's fine. And I think that's the thing I'd come back to. Being nervous won't help anything at all. And I appreciate that's much easier said than done. But like, you're going to naturally feel nervous anyway. But just try and remember, if worse comes to worse, it's fine. You'll just carry on the next day, and you will get there 100%. So yeah, just try not to let it build up in your head too much, I would say. But I totally agree about the templates. They're essential, and it's essential that like Louise says, you do it yourself, because I think only by, like, I pretty much tutor the management accounting units, and with management accounts templates, you could have such a variety of different templates that you'd use and different formats. But if you don't go through the thought process of putting that template together yourself, you won't understand when I send you a template. But you'll understand it, but you won't have actually gained that logic to put it together.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's got to come from you, hasn't it? That side of it. I know. I mean, I've got two daughters who have got completely different approaches to learning in school. One of whom, if she gets, as you say, less than 90% Ellis, then that is, the world is about to end. And I have another who, that'll do. We joke that that's her middle name. That'll do. And my other daughter, I always remember, she was in second year at school. She was about to drop some subjects and go on to the one she was going to do for the Scottish equivalent of GCSE. She was doing a technical studies project, and she had to do this kind of cartoon strip. And I found her, age 13, sitting at 10:30 at night, trying to finish this thing off. I said, "Why are you spending so long on this? You're not continuing with that subject anyway." She said, "It's got my name on it. It's got to be my best work." And while that's admirable, there's also a place for that'll do. If we could find somewhere in the middle, there's a happy medium, I think. And that's maybe what to aim for.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Okay, so finally, you do not need to tackle these challenges alone. With Ideal Schools, you've got award-winning tutors, a thriving community, and over 40 years of experience helping students succeed. So we've had some questions and answers coming in as we have gone on. So if you are okay, folks, I will start to share these with you. So one of the first questions we had was about the apps you mentioned at the beginning, Ellis, and that was a question from Zara. I think she was interested in particularly the one about managing your time on social media. And
Yes.
also perhaps maybe even the cereal box one. So if you could share the names, that would
So
be super
obviously we
helpful.
don't endorse them, we don't know them, it's just my
No.
personal use. But the app locking one I've got is called Lock Me Out. So, and I have an Android, by the way, so Samsung. So if you have an iPhone, the app might not be there, but I'm sure there's an equivalent. And the one that's the alarm clock, it looks like it's just called Sleep. It's got like a picture of a little Android person in like under the covers. So I think like it might not be on iPhones, that one, but there'll be equivalents. So just give it a
Yeah,
search in the App Store and yeah, see how you get on with it. But it's just about finding something that works for you, really.
superb. Thank you very much. We also had a question come in about self-sabotage. How do you combat self-sabotage? And I was like, not sure exactly what you mean by that. Can you give me a bit more information? Yeah, when I'm about to reach a goal, I can sometimes sabotage it so I don't reach it. Any ideas about that?
So for me, I would say identifying the weakness that is no, not weakness, but identifying the thing that is making you self-sabotage. So if it's the kind of thing where I don't, perhaps maybe you're thinking, oh, you're doing well with your studies, but then you're getting close to the exam and you're getting really nervous, and actually you end up just, I don't know, playing video games or doing something that isn't productive towards the goal. I would say it is about finding that individual thing that allows you to self-sabotage. So I to put it on a parallel, I've been on a diet for ages, and I know that if I have chocolate or sweets in the house, I will eat them. So therefore, I do not have chocolates or sweets in the house.
Yeah.
It's probably quite similar in study. I know that I will scroll the apps on TikTok, and so I make sure I block that app with my app on the phone. So it's just about the first thing is being real with yourself and actually going, you know what, this is actually the thing that's stopping me, and not denying it. I'm quite happy to admit all my weaknesses because I think that actually when you admit them, it becomes a strength because you know yourself really well. So that's probably what I'd say.
I think that's really helpful. I think it is about that. It's about what is it that's getting in the way. Be honest with yourself about it. It's almost there is this thing of if I don't put myself out there and I don't really buy into it and I don't try the very best I can, then when it doesn't work out, it'll be okay because I didn't really try my best anyway. There's that whole kind of psychology that some people have going on with things, and I think it's about being, again, as you say, it's about being honest with yourself about whether you're doing that or not. What are you afraid of? What is it that's making you self-sabotage? What is the part of success that's scary? And really kind of engage with that a bit. Louise, do you want to come in on that one?
I think again, but know yourself. Don't, if you've got these habits or tendencies, know them, identify them, and be proactive. And if you're proactive about your tendencies to do this, and then you can unpick it
Yeah.
and see where it really stems from. But I do get that, Elaine, not giving it. Some people don't want to give it their all because then if they gave it their all and it won't, it's
Yeah.
going to hurt a lot more.
That's it. And it's a self-preservation thing, isn't it? A kind of self-protection thing. But I think it's that thing of it's almost kind of seeing past yourself and thinking, well, what is the actual ultimate end goal? Why did I engage in this in the first place? There must have been a real motivation within me. There must have been something I wanted to change or something I wanted to achieve. So
Also, if you've spoken to your friends and family about it, that gives you some sort of accountability.
yeah,
As in, I've told them I'm going to do this. So that can then be used to sort of stop the self-sabotage.
yeah,
You've told people, oh, I'm going to be a bookkeeper.
yeah.
I'm going to take these exams. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open my own practice, and that will address it at some level.
Yeah. No, I think that's all good advice.
I think being honest with yourself about whether excuses are fine and they're okay, but it's about knowing whether if you're making an excuse, know if it's a real excuse or whether it's actually an excuse that could have been avoided. Because I'm great for making excuses, but I do recognize that sometimes my excuses don't really hold up. And if you can recognize that, and actually, if you just think, oh, actually, I just didn't do it, then that
Oh,
is sometimes better. Like, it's acceptable. No one's forcing you to do this. So it's
oh,
perfectly acceptable. You don't have to try and find a reason all the time why
no.
something didn't happen. But
Yeah.
if you do find reasons, truly analyze that reason and see actually, and just be real with yourself, because no one's going to be mad at you. Was it really an excuse, or was it kind of just, I just didn't do it? And if that's the case, it's fine. But then we can find strategies to help you overcome that next
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. And think of some of the strategies we've talked about today. We've got a very specific question, which is about listening to the course materials from Emma. She says, I have used the Read My Screen on my iPhone, but it only reads the top and bottom of the app, such as page 1 of 100, next, skip. It doesn't read the actual document.
Right, I tried it with the PDF and it was, did you do it offline, Emma?
I'm not sure, because Emma will need to...
You've got to make it available offline.
Okay, so you get the Mimeo version, yeah? Yes, she did it offline, she says.
Basically, the only thing is I'm not a tech expert.
Yeah.
But on my phone, and it also depends which iOS version you've got as well, but it will read an offline PDF to me.
Okay.
And you can use this for any PDF. It doesn't, you know, whatever you'd like to listen to on a dog walk. I've listened to about VAT and all sorts. So, you know, but it definitely, it carries on reading for me, but I'll have a look into it, Emma. Get in touch.
Emma, what I'll do, if it's okay, is I'll put you in touch with Louise via email, and then that way you guys can follow up this conversation.
And
Right?
I'll ask Ellis for help because he's
Yeah, that was just a little glitch to tell us we've hit 12 o'clock, so we should probably think about finishing off soon. If anyone's got any other questions, folks, please fire them in the next sort of minute, and then we'll just kind of finish off. But yeah, we Ellis, if it's anything to do with tech, we all just go to Ellis, don't we?
Very happy to be in-house tech. That's no problem.
We are we're capable up to a point. As you can see by that, just telling us we were recording stopped again. I just make it look so effortless. Right, I'm going to wind things up if we don't have any more questions. I don't think we do. I'm hoping that that people have found this useful and that they found it motivating. We were really trying not to tell you what to do. We were trying to give you a bit of empowerment and a bit of kind of self-confidence and a bit of self-belief to kind of really shape how you manage your own self-study journey, because I think that that's what is going to ultimately have to happen when you qualify, whether you go into an employed role or whether you go into being self-employed. You're going to have to manage your workload, you're going to have to manage your relationships with your clients, you're going to have that kind of sense of ownership of what you're doing. So I think it's good that you do that at this stage in your journey, because it's something that's going to stand you in good stead going forward. But as I said earlier, if you're looking for motivation, go on our Student Spotlight page on our website and just read some of the stories of people's experiences and some of the things that people have had to deal with in their lives while they've been studying. If they can do that, you can do this. Absolutely. And Ellis, myself, and Louise all firmly believe that education is something that everybody is capable of embracing and using to improve their life. So thank you so much for joining us, folks. Is there anything you guys want to finish off by saying, or have we covered it all?
Stay positive. Ask for
Yeah.
help when you need it.
Yeah.
Keep going. You've got this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And have a lovely rest of your Tuesday.